Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to Michelle's Inspiration Hour. My name is Michelle Henderson, and I just hope that each episode will leave you with joy and, most of all, inspiration. Now, I have a question to ask you. Do you have a good relationship with money? Our next guest will shed some light on having a better relationship with money that you did not think was possible. Richard Friesen works with professionals and business leaders who want to increase their personal effectiveness with joy and grace. His neuroscience-based mind muscles model gives his clients the opportunity to reach their goals with online training, simulations, interactive exercises, group support, and real-time decision processes. Richard is building a money positive community with his book, A Private Conversation with Money. This book observes the main character, Joe, who deals with all the complex self sabotage and belief systems around money and wealth. All right, so I am so excited to introduce this next guest. Let's bring him on. Hello, hello.
Hi.
How are you?
Hey, Michelle. It's an inspiration just to look at you and be here. I find just your essence has got me bubbling.
Oh, well, I think, oh, good. So I'm so glad. So hopefully it will kind of be contagious and other people will go, oh, I love that inspiration. So that's good. Thank you so much for coming and joining us and really sharing us your professionalism and also all the advice that you give people through your book. So do you mind if I go ahead and bring up a picture of your book first? And I absolutely love this. And whenever I was reading it, I thought, oh my gosh, this is so easy to read because with me, I don't know much about money or the relationship with money. And whenever I read this, I really got attached to the character because it is a non-fiction book with a character in it. And like I said before, it almost reminds me of historical fiction and really helps the reader embrace what the main character comes through. But I have to ask you, what did you base this main character Joe on? Is this you that you created as being a character?
Well, this is fascinating because part of it is, of course, about me and my own projections. And I had a lot of internal conflicts around money, meaning, success. I've been through the whole political spectrum from a conservative in high school to being a very liberal when I went to Chicago and saw the inner city, and to running for Congress as a libertarian. So I've been all across the spectrum. But what mostly I noticed was the internal conflicts and beliefs that I had. And I looked at my client list and looked at the conflicts that they had. And what was interesting is when I started writing Joe's thoughts and stuff, it's not like I was writing them. It's like Joe just kind of emerged. And I'll be darned if he didn't say things that I wasn't expecting or didn't even want him to say. But my fingers just kind of, what's the word when you speak for somebody out there? I forgot what it is, but it's kind of like he evolved through my fingertips.
And I think that's usually, any good author will say the exact same thing,
Oh,
that they
really?
don't really know where the information is coming from, but it just kind of flows in your writing. And of course, to me, that's a part of you speaking, that subconscious mind of yours that's coming out. Okay, so what gave you the inspiration of starting a program like this?
Well, what I saw is just so many, especially young people, who are so conflicted about money. I mean, on one hand, we have we worship all the Hollywood stars, the wealthy people, the mansions and all that. And on the other hand, we have social justice. Wealthy people are bad; they're making money off the backs of the poor. And then we have our upbringing, and our upbringing, can be ranged from everything from, they're rich, we're poor, and that's the reason. And to everything that money comes. Oh, whoopee, we just let it go. Money is the root of all evil. So we have all these different family belief systems that are embedded deeply inside of us. We have the cultural conflicts that we have and the huge cultural divides that are going on. So what I found is my clients, sometimes they'll go like this. They'll make money, like professional traders. And then all of a sudden, kaboom. And that pattern is so persistent. So I ask, what's going on up here? What's happening? Whether it's an entrepreneur selling a business, a trader, a hedge fund managers, and it's a whole bunch of things that are going up there. And it can be as deep as personal worthiness. It can be a mindset of stepping into a whole new world that this is interesting, is that they're terrified of their own power if they become that wealthy and that consistent in making money. So we have all these things going on. And I thought, what if we could reframe this so people could translate all this? And what I do is I talk about certificates of appreciation, that when you deliver value, people give you a certificate of appreciation for that. So we take kind of trying to remove all that old money, all that conflict stuff, and turn it into a positive.
I love that because I had never even, I'm sure that it came from you because I've never heard the certificates of appreciation. We're told that whenever you exchange money, it's like an exchange back and
Mm-hmm.
forth. But
Mm-hmm.
you added, like you said, you added that value to it. It's not only exchanging, but it's also adding that value. Can you kind of explain more about that?
Sure. Michelle, if I have a transaction with you and you say, oh, Rich has given me really value. Here, Rich, here are some certificates of appreciation. And I receive those and I go, oh my gosh, these are a marker of the value I've delivered to another human being. So rather than me trying to make money, my mission is to deliver value. And when I deliver value honestly and with people's and deliver it within their own value system and make their lives better, expand their experiences and just make things more wonderful. And then I receive these. And here's the part that is going to make some heads explode. So it's a little radical.
Go for it.
Okay. We don't want to lose any of your listeners with their heads
No.
exploding. But the more certificates of appreciation you collect, honestly, and by delivering value, the more value you have delivered to the world. Oh my gosh, all of a sudden, money, meaning, success, all those internal old messages, our cultural conflict just evaporate. Now, understanding that delivering value and commercially and receiving certificates of appreciation is a small part of the value we deliver to the world, to my family, my wife, my kids, my grandkids, the loving mother, the people who volunteer work. I mean, Martin Luther King changed the world and it had nothing to do with money. So
Very true.
just understanding that that the commercial part of life is important. There's all sorts of different ways that you can add value to the world. But if you're in the commercial world, the more certificates of appreciation you collect, the more value you've delivered to the world.
And I absolutely love that because you're also adding some spirituality into it, which I love because a lot of people don't really realize that money does happen, that your inner spirituality, it adds, you feel good about it and it
Mm-hmm.
should not really bring, hindrance to your life. It shouldn't be like a big, heavy thing that you have to deal with and have that negativity at or be angry like Joe was angry in your book about it.
Yes, really was. So when I look at the
And
spiritual,
yeah.
go ahead.
Oh, no, you go.
Yeah.
Perfect.
The spirituality part is if you have a hole, what I call a hole in your heart, In other words, if there's something missing, your parents didn't give you the love or the appreciation, or you had trauma in your life, or you're unable to connect with other people on a higher spiritual level, you have a hole in the heart. Now, that can be made up with drugs, sex, gambling, and money, and Lamborghinis and mansions. And we try to fill that hole in our heart with all these other things. So as long as we're trying to do that, money then becomes, that's where maybe greed and just tension and internal stress comes from, because we're trying to do something to fill something that is actually a personal, transformational, even spiritual issue in our life, and we're trying to fill it with money. And as you well know, Michelle, the end of that does not
Yes.
end well.
No, it doesn't. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And I agree with you. I love how you put the psychology into it. And I know that you were a great financial person, a financial coach where talk about a little bit about your background, how you learned about finances and all about money and how it works.
Yeah, so I had a friend in college, Joe Ritchie, who created a firm, Chicago Research and Trading, and he invited me to join. Now, Rich Friesen was a philosophy major, master's degree in psychology, caring kind of a person, transformational. I've been to almost every transformational group there is. And all of a sudden, I'm on the floor of the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, screaming and yelling. It's not a course that I would have created, just given the natural progression of my life. But all of a sudden I was there, and I did well for them. I opened a trading desk at the Pacific Stock Exchange, was on the board of directors there, and eventually opened and built my own trading firm. And what was fascinating is, this is a longer story, but I'll really truncate it,
Oh, no.
is that
Yeah.
I had my own $200,000 limit, how much I was allowed to make a year, because I wasn't smart enough, didn't deserve more, wasn't worthy. And I went through a whole thing around that, because a voice in the middle of the night woke me up and said, "Rich, you're only worth 200,000 a year." And so I realized I was done with that voice. I went to the exchange. I fought for a better place in the pit. And eventually I went on to make many times that and opened a trading firm. And trade management then started hiring traders. And what was interesting is about a third of them, using our methodology, would just make money. About a third of them would do okay, not great. It was fine. But a third of them just couldn't do it, couldn't do it, couldn't do it. So I brought in a hypnotherapist. And what we discovered is they had their own internal limits all the way down to their very identity. In other words, if we look at behavioral change, there's an identity, well, maybe even a spiritual level, an identity level, a belief level, and then a behavior level. And if we look at the issues, we can work our way down. And they had either belief or identity issues. And, for example, one of them was a guy who grew up in West Virginia, dirt poor parents, but very bright, came out to find his world and his life, and I hired him. And he made little, lost it, made little, lost it, made little, lost it. And so under hypnotherapy, he discovered that he had an extended family in West Virginia, all kind of poor, but there was, church on Sundays, there was huge barbecues, there was, an extended family. And subconsciously, he believed that if he made money, he would lose his family. So as soon as he understood that, then we could say, okay, how can you both be successful and mitigate that fear of yours? And that was true in many other of the traders that just didn't make it. We had something fundamental in a belief issue.
Oh my God, that is so, interesting how the experience brought you to where you are today.
Yeah,
And
and
I
that's,
totally
go ahead.
agree. It's almost, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. um, and I think about whenever my husband and I first got married and wanted to buy a house back then, and this was early 90s. it was like everybody was trying to buy nicer things than anybody else. That was how
Mm-hmm.
society was: do better than your parents, or do better than your next door neighbor. And
Mm-hmm.
so, the banks were saying, oh yeah, you can just do this big loan and buy this huge house. And and so everybody was doing it and then going
Yep.
into debt. So I agree with you. I think we learn all of these behavior patterns and we don't realize what we're doing. And I finally told my husband, I said, you know what? Let's get rid of this too expensive home and buy something we can actually afford. I didn't feel like I was saying, I wasn't worthy enough for it. I just felt like, we can spend more family time.
Oh,
We
yeah.
found what was important for us.
Well, what you just said, I'd like to highlight it, put it in neon lights blinking. What's
Yeah.
important for us is what you just said, Michelle.
Mhm.
And oftentimes people will spend money and then they're just burdened by not only the debt, but the maintenance, the upkeep, hiring people to take care of things. And all of a sudden, that trying to fill that empty hole in their heart by things that don't really matter, it gets pretty expensive.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I can say now that, and I never thought, we have paid off our house. so it's like, yeah. So I never really felt, whenever I read your book, and I thought, you know what, and answered the same question I opened the podcast with: do I have a good relationship with money? And
Hmm.
I'm going, well, you know what, I really don't know, because my husband is so good with money that he does
Oh,
all the finances, and so I
excellent.
let go of that. So is that a good thing to do? If Do you think that's a good relationship with
Well,
money?
it sounds like a partnership where you can be the creative, the dynamic, try new things, and the husband can stabilize it. In my relationship, my wife is the CFO of my company. And
Wow.
if
That's
I put something on the credit card, 10 minutes later, she says, I just got a bill
oh,
for this. What's that? So, I'm more like the absent-minded professor. If it was for me,
right,
some things wouldn't get taken care of, but that allows me
right.
then to be creative, write a book. My
Mhm.
thoughts are like a million thoughts a minute going around. And so we have a
Yeah.
partnership and it works really well.
Oh, I love it. Well, thank you. Man, now I feel really good. Okay, tell us about the golden keys of having this relationship with money and kind of morphing into a better relationship. Tell us about the golden keys that you mentioned in your book.
Well, what you hinted at it just a minute ago, you said you were aware that, this having all these expenses and the bigger house. And so the first one is awareness. And you've already indicated that that was the start of your journey, is to be aware in real time. Then once you're aware, we accept what we discover. So if I am aware uh, that I don't feel worthy. And then I say, Rich, you should feel worthy. In other words, if I judge myself for what I discover, well, obviously my discoveries are going to be limited. But if I can say,
Mhm.
oh, that's fascinating, I don't feel worthy. Wow, that's interesting. So we make it a discovery and a wonderful thing to discover it. So awareness, and then we have acceptance. Then what
Mhm.
happens is in real time, I can start to be aware. Like I was aware this morning of some judgmental thoughts I had. And it was in real time. I said, oh, I'm having these judgmental thoughts. So awareness, acceptance, and then next is agency. Do I want to have these thoughts? In other words, if we're aware enough in real time and we can be aware enough, eventually this awareness has a life
Mhm.
of its own and then can start being the agent that can ask, and so what do I want now? And I realize, oh, do I want to have those judgmental thoughts? Huh, I don't think so.
I love it. I love it. And the main character in your book too. I mean, we kind of like watching a movie, kind of seeing him go through all these different keys and talk about it. And then he does have a partner in crime, which
He
is
does.
Julie. And I love that you also had a relationship in there, because it's like, oh my gosh, okay, we're talking about money and also relationship, because it really makes you think about, like what I was talking about my husband and I, that money is so much more than what you think it is. It's just not a concrete thing that you exchange. There's so much more power, and I don't know, money can take its own person, I guess you could say,
Well, it did in
its
the
own
book.
characteristic. Exactly, personality and everything.
Yeah.
And it's really good, because it really, and I feel like your book kind of helps the reader go through step by step and really think about things that you normally don't think of.
Mhm.
And so I thank you for writing this imaginative book.
Well, it was my
And let me
pleasure. Go ahead.
let me bring it out again for the people. Oh, I'm sorry, wrong button. We want to keep you there. So, the people that are not watching video and they're listening on audio, the name of your book is A Private Conversation with Money. And I love the cover of this. It's beautiful with the key in the lock. And it says, experience the 10 keys to financial freedom, which everybody is striving for. So, is there anything that we did not talk about that you want to make sure that we bring up in this conversation?
Yeah, that if we can be in rapport with money and values and delivering values, that can touch on some of the deeper spiritual values that we have. Because if money uh, is not connected to our deeper spiritual values, then it becomes a task, or takes, like you just said, all sorts of meaning. But what if money was a certificate of appreciation, and our spiritual deepest values are to deliver value to others in our workplace, in our community, in our world? Well, then all of a sudden we have rapport with our deepest values, and creating businesses and being entrepreneurs or traders, investing, so that we don't have that typical thing where we go so far, then we get shaky, and then we blow it.
Mhm. I totally agree. And don't you think that a lot of people before, they quit right at that mountain peak, and they stop whenever it's about to go back up
Yeah.
and be successful. So a lot of people, I think, give up a little bit too early, because I think that fear kind of gets inside, and it's like, oh, I can't do this business at all. So what advice, yeah, do you have for them? How do you get rid of that fear?
Yeah, so I think you're bringing up something really important here. It's what I call the survival mechanism. And our primitive survival mechanisms say, okay, we know struggle, or we know poverty, or we are in this, we're in the middle class or the lower middle class or wherever it is. And that is where our struggle, that's where our attention is. But we know we can survive it. We know that
Right.
we can survive this. For example, if I look at my own life and my own struggles, I know that I can survive certain things. So I recreate them in my life. So I have my clients step into success, and we do it through hypnotherapy or guided visualizations. And as we step into that success, then we find out what are all the things that are missing, or what are all the risks that our subconscious conjures up to keep us from being there. So, for example, I'll have them create a house that represents their success. It might be in a valley next to an ocean, on a mountain, or wherever. And then I have them approach the door. What is your experience as you approach the door? I have them put their hand on the handle. What do you notice physiologically? Turn the handle, you step in. And for a lot of the survival mechanisms say, no, 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 we don't belong there. We don't belong there.
Right, right. And yeah. They're going, no, I don't belong there at all. But yeah, you got to turn that attitude around. You ready for the last question?
I'm ready for the last question.
All right. So let's bring up the wheel. All right. I've got to spin it now. Let's spin. There it goes. Oh. Okay, so if a genie gave you one wish, what one wish would you wish for?
For people to develop agency in their lives, take responsibility for them, and be able to visualize their future and step into it with rapport, with their meaning, with their money, and with their life. So I just ache for that, because if each individual does that, my gosh, the world for my grandchildren will be a far better place.
I love it. See, making the world a better place. That mission just keeps going over and over
And
and
over,
over again.
yes.
Okay, well, where can people reach you?
They can go to conversations.money, the website, or my email is rich@conversations.money. And I created a special page. It's called conversations.money/inspiration. And if they go
Oh,
there, they can get a free online course that is the book companion. So all the exercises are there and extra things. So if they want to work and if they want to step into a world of rapport with money, we have all the issues that people normally have, and then steps that they can take to make that just feel better in the moment and make their lives
mm.
better.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. Well, everybody, I hope that now you can answer the question, do you have a good relationship with money? If not, you know where to find his book. And I found it on Amazon, but you can go to his website and find all the guides and just bukus of information that's not in the book as well. So thank you so much for listening. And Richard, thank you so much for being here with us. And again, showing us not only your knowledge, but also your love. So I appreciate that. All
Uh,
right. See you next time,
Thank you.
everybody.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you.